Life is hectic, demanding, and doesn't stop. When honest with ourselves, we must confess we often don't know what the hell we're doing. The Larkcast is an ongoing conversation about the inclusive and mischievous nature of God's presence through the lens of all the things that make up this phenomenon we refer to as life. Astonishing grace and refreshing honesty collide right here for your weekly encouragement.
All right, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Larkcast. We are fresh off the heels of Father's Day. And I saw a comedian talking recently. He said Father's Day is the 20th most celebrated holiday in the country, and Arbor Day is ahead of Father's Day. Halloween's number 6.
Okay. All right. Halloween.
Christmas is number 1, Mother's Day number 2, Halloween 6, and Arbor Day comes before Dad's. So oak trees before Dad's.
Yes. I don't understand that, though. I feel like there's a lot
pretty
we could
wild.
podcast on.
It's pretty
It's
wild,
sad, man.
It is sad.
Got them moms way up there at the top, bro.
Well, moms crush it, dude.
Jesus mama always loved me.
I have some friends who their mom kind of abandoned their family, but the chances of it being the dad are a lot higher.
Yeah, that's very true. Very sad. And I'm glad that we're beginning on this somber note.
Yes, it's very somber. Normally,
I'm like, damn.
a lot light. It's a lot lighter.
I was all in a good mood, and I'm like over here feeling.
Thanks, bro. Thanks. I kind of went, zero dark 30 there.
But we are fresh off
you
the
brought
heels
us
of
back.
Father's Day.
We are fresh off the heels of Father's Day. And I had a great Father's Day. It was fantastic. The best thing I got was the notes. I didn't really get a gift this year, but I got some really nice cards from the kids.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. My kids are spread out, so my oldest got me a very fine bottle of Irish whiskey. 13-year. It's a nice gift, man, for me to enjoy. My daughter, she's on that sentimental side, so she gave me a keychain, made me cry. And a couple other things, man. One thing that she got me that I had to laugh about, which you'll laugh about. I'm sitting here at my desk, this little makeshift office I've got that's still coming together. And I've got a little thing that's plugged into the wall that heats my coffee, keeps my coffee cup warm.
Little coffee warmer.
Little coffee warmer. And then my 6-year-old got me this cup. It says best farter ever. Oops, I meant father.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And dude, he was like busting at the seams, bro. And trying not to tell me what this gift was. I've heard every day for like 2 weeks straight. Dad, when you see this present I got you, oh my gosh.
Wanted to give it to you as soon as you woke up.
Yeah, I went awake 3 minutes, man. And I couldn't even open it because he was opening it to give it to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
And
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah. Seeing that I met you probably right around now in 2014. So that's
9 years ago.
9 years of being your friend. I would say you're the best farter ever. For sure.
Man, I appreciate that, dude.
A lot of road trips, a lot of farting with the windows, up in confined spaces.
Yep. Especially when I'm driving and I can accidentally maliciously lock the windows.
You're up there, dude. You're up there. You got them stinky pipes, dude.
It's just, we all got to be good at something, man. And my whole life, like, as an adult in the church world, was all about, discovering your gifts, man, honing your gifts. You really want to bring like your A game to the table. And being a Southern kid, man, who grew up in a food house, just figured, dude, this is my lane, man. It's my
Yep.
lane.
So episode 99 of the Larcast, you want to just make a hard shift into just the epidemic of fatherlessness? You want to get back to the beginning of this, or go with
I
what
don't.
we determined that we were going to talk about?
I mean, it is a real thing, and we could probably get into that conversation in the future. Just to show you how religious we are in our nature. I know we were all totally just joking about that, but as soon as you brought up, like, do you want to make a hard shift? I'm like inside, I'm like immediately going through this toil. Well, if I say no to diving into this needed conversation, I mean, are we backing away, man, from what we should be pressing into? Are we
Mm,
being lukewarm in this?
mm,
Right? I'm just saying, like, there's like that immediate, like,
sure.
it's like that, dude. And then of course, hopefully I've learned enough over the years that I can hear from the spirit and within those milliseconds. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm just spitballing here, but I'm being honest. Like,
It's
it's so
the
tricky, man. Like how
the
you're
no
so free, but you're so religious at the same time.
I call it the neurosis of the free.
Yeah.
And it's a thing. And who even has it even worse than that is it's the neurosis of the newly free. And that's something that so but just to preface this, we thought we'd hop on here for episode 99 because we didn't want to move on to, we have a couple of ideas on where we're going to take the Larkcast, and we're pretty excited about those. But we didn't want to jump immediately into kind of like a new conversation and a new approach, because we have something very special planned for episode 100, which is the very next episode. And so
Mm.
we're planning. Um, we have some neat things
Scheming.
in store. We're scheming. We're not promising it's going to be amazing, but it, as we thought about it, it's a pretty special idea to us, and we hope that you're encouraged by it. So episode 100 is coming up. We wanted to make a big deal about that, and we also thought there was a lot of merit to hopping on here in this episode and just having some kind of, post game thoughts, some Monday morning quarterbacking on our conversation through Reclaim, because we've written Reclaim. It's done. It's finished. It's a book that you can purchase. But as the authors, it's not like we're not on this journey along with you too. Like, we wrote about these things because these things have been the most impactful things to us. These
Yeah.
things have been so important to us because they're things that have brought, life and challenge and freedom to us as well. So we are going to have a conversation, kind of like a post-game conversation on Reclaim, just some things that we're continuing to think about, continuing to wrestle with, new discoveries in light of these things, or the fresh ways that Reclaim has encouraged us. So that is this episode.
That is it. That's where we go, man. So if you've been tracking with us, if you grabbed a copy of Reclaim and you read through it, or if this is the first time you're hearing this, feel free to go to larksite.com, grab a copy of that. But I would say the phrase, man, that you just used probably hits it easiest, hits it best. It's the neurosis of the newly free.
Mm-hmm.
If we had $1 for every person over the years that has gone through this journey and came to us and said, you just put language to how I've always felt, but I could never articulate or really defend from the scriptures, allowing me the freedom to go really jump into life with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we'd be we would be some rich men. And I love that. But I've also seen over the years that the journey is beautiful, and it's, you could say it's biblical, you could say it's simple. But man, it can be really challenging in the beginning, because you kind of don't know what to do with a thought that I just a few minutes ago expressed. you wrestle because you have so much of your life is typically built on a ladder that's forever in front of you of what should be and all these
Mm-hmm.
shoulds that you should be doing. And then of course, the church world just makes that ladder even higher for some reason, which is really ironic, seeing how it's talking about Jesus. Um, and then of course our inevitable failure to keep all the plates spinning comes, right? All the shame. And that you sort of like live with this like framework in your mind of shame and should. This has been my experience, and lots of conversations, man, traveling over the years. But you start to grab onto some freedom within that. You start to see it more clearly, but that framework's still there. Like it doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in some places we've written about it almost like an addiction, like religious addiction. It's like, and so
Yes,
you you hear
absolutely.
this good news and you want to go walk in these new things, but there's this perpetual framework that's like always feels like it's at war in your mind. And I feel like over time, as the Spirit of God continues to teach us, life gets easier in that. But man, in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, like coming out of these truths for the first time, if that's you who's listening, yeah, there's a what's the word that you used earlier? Like was it a gauntlet or something? You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying in the beginning? This chasm that's like, man, here we go.
Yeah, you're really thrown into, it's kind of like you know, a theological crisis, a practical crisis, you know, mental, whatever. You're wrapping your head around um this this freedom that you heard about.
Mm-hmm.
You probably even told others about it,
Yep.
but didn't really understand it. And up to, like when I first met you and started wrestling through some of these things, I think I was at I think I was at the point where I was um discovering the impossibility of it all. That the burden to be the church in Northwest Indiana and make this impact and all
Yep.
this stuff, and we're gonna like get all these small groups doing this, and man,
Chicago as it is in heaven.
we're gonna serve, and you were just so honed in on discipleship and all the stuff that you just expected everybody to do because it's good and it's biblical and it's right and it should be, it ought to be because it's in the scriptures. And then I'm just over here being honest with myself, like, dude, I'm not good at any of this. I don't do any of these things, none of it. And now being on the opposite side where, I'm not in full-time ministry, I'm an actual business owner, with a full-time job, a family. And then I'm also trying to flesh out the neighbor community. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still have a heart for everyone around me, and I'm always down to have the conversation of Jesus and would love the opportunity to disciple anyone, honestly. Dude, the amount of stuff we put on people, the expectation church leaders had, right? So there's that thing. But I just discovered the impossibility of it all. And I just was kind of like primed for that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I had like for a really, really long time lived in the illusion that my list mattered, you know, maybe like Paul back when he thought that all his circumcision on the 8th day and the tribe he was born to and how well
Yeah.
he was performing according to the law meant something. I was right on that brink. And I remember being such good news for me, but I remember I really clinged on to some of these ideas early on because I knew it would be good news for my neighbors. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And I really, really want to share that. But what I discovered was that kind of put me into a crisis because now all the what felt so good and so right with all these oughts and all these shoulds, I was kind of free from the weight of that, but I didn't know how to interact with it anymore. And so
Yeah.
you're
It's a good way to
dealing with
put it.
like it really is a neurosis in that it can get really dark sometimes,
Mhm.
wrestling through your freedom. And I think it's why the Galatians were probably so prone or susceptible to being bewitched, is because what runs deep in our heads and our hearts is the tension that you described, talking
Yeah.
about the fatherlessness thing. Our world is religious, our churches are religious, the law is baked into everything, and there's that subtle quiet one voice in the world. Maybe you have a little bit louder voice if you have good community around you, but I would suspect that you'll probably feel very lonely in this journey that's telling you you're free. And it's probably not a lot of people doing that. Everyone's pulling you in this direction and that direction,
Yeah.
and it feels so good to just grab onto things that are true and right and just jump into it, and and really give yourself over to that in like a religious way, because then you're like, like the tension's removed, I'm checking the boxes, I'm doing the
Mhm.
um and so it really is, man. It's like, you know, um, when you grab on to freedom, inevitably you're going to misuse it, because you're playing with
Yeah.
something, for the first time that you've never had. It's like my son, when he first got his license, I got a new truck and I gave him my old 2007 Acura TL. It's got a V6 in it. It's pretty quick. And months later, he told me this. He was like, Dad, he's like, I got that thing up to 120 miles an hour on a back road right by our house. And he goes, dude, no, this is what he said to me. He goes, dude, I've never been more scared in my life. Like, it just
Mhm.
freaked me. It just freaked me out. And it's like that. And so, especially for here, I'll just be honest. I first started grabbing onto freedom, and my wife, Pam, was really struggling with it, like big time. So whenever this freedom, right, we tried to create community around this freedom, or like these ideas around this freedom. And whenever anyone would push back on it, it would create tension and conversation. It was almost kind of like, for Pam, it was like, you know, evidence that this isn't right. It's not good. This shouldn't be creating this much tension. There should be like more like encouragement around the conversation of Jesus. And then I would be like, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like, man, am I getting it wrong? Or I would do something like, let's say I would be like, more pursuing my freedom in, maybe socially, or, partying or drinking or something like that. And I would go a little bit too far. And she's like, see, like, it's, like this doesn't work. This isn't it.
Mhm.
And we can laugh about it now because we've come, a long ways, and
Yeah.
Pam's a lot different and I'm a lot different, and we, if she was here, she would have a lot of good things to say about this. But getting used to being free, um, it's it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a while, man, to get to a place where you go, all right, me running off in different directions and pursuing things that can be harmful, hurtful. Um, that's not a problem with God, or a problem with the fact that He set me free in His
Mm-hmm.
Son. Past tense, done, finished.
Right.
Right? It's a it's me pursuing something in my freedom that's hurtful, harmful, points to something entirely different.
Yes.
Right? It points to other things that I've grabbed on that I believe, other, right, trauma in my life. It could be other things that I'm still carrying, that I'm trying to escape from or overcompensate for. There's a variety of things, and to me, that all of it really goes back to Reclaim One for me. Which, going back through that, dude, was like a big kind of aha reminder.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
my
I
buddy,
feel like we could probably write an entire Reclaim book just on Reclaim One. After going through the book of John like we did, dude, on this podcast,
Mhm.
and then jumping into that, it was like, what? Oh my! I mean, talk about such a limited understanding that I was still carrying
Mm,
in who this Jesus is that
yeah.
set us free. And but dude, I'm with you, man. Like you run amok, man. Like you, just like anybody, right? We take something that's good and beautiful and make some bad decisions with it, and then we go, see this freedom thing. And you guys are totally alone in that. No couple's ever dealt with that before, bro.
Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. Well, but dude, we would. Russ
I'm just saying
remembers
that's my house too.
we would hash it out. We would hash it out right in the kitchen in front of 40 other people. You know, and
You two arguing. It's
oh,
amazing.
dude, Pam and I constantly. Well, that's what you get when you got two firstborns. You know,
Yeah. I
you get
told you this
together.
doesn't work. No, it does. You're just religious.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I was so patient, so patient, so kind in those early days.
Oh,
Um,
dude.
it's
We
like
still go through stuff, man.
my buddy Mike said, like, like when you got a caged lion, if you set that thing free, it's probably going to eat a person the first thing it does. Like, that's what it's going to do. It's going to maul a human being. Someone's
Yeah.
going to lose their life.
Yeah.
And it's very much like that. Freedom, people talk about grace and freedom like it is this flowery, hallmarkish idea. And you will never have something more violently beautiful that you wrestle with in terms
Yeah.
of how you relate to yourself, how God relates to you, and how you relate to other people, and how God relates to other people. It will not allow you to be comfortable in any camp or ideology. In fact, I have found that the word exile to describe the church and the world, I feel like that is more true of me now than ever,
Yeah.
because I don't find a home in the left or the right or the middle or anything. The only
Yeah.
thing that makes sense to me anymore is Jesus, and that he doesn't allow you to be safe any other place other than him.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other form of identity or sense of security, man,
Yep.
will let you down.
Yes.
It just will. You will let the people down in whatever tribe you're trying to defend, and they will let you down. And from what we've seen, especially over the last few years, um, they will straight up cut your throat and hang you out dry if you miss the mark.
Yep.
Jesus won't. But you're right, man. It's when he is Lord, there's something so freeing and beautiful about it, but at the same time, so trying in a world filled with people who are all trying to be Lord.
Hmm.
Right? I mean, if we get back to the garden, it's pretty simple. You've got a humanity that's trying to overcome their humanity. They think that's the problem. That's what they need to overcome. And then you fast forward to this God who created us, himself becomes flesh, reclaim one. That's what I'm saying. Like going back through that again was so refreshing to me. And just being reminded that when we think about the Father and what he's really like and all the breakdowns that we have of fatherly images, in and around us, we don't have to fear, because this Jesus that we're all clinging to and going, this is the one, right? Guess what? He's the image of the invisible God.
Mm-hmm.
He is what the Father's like. He's
Yes.
doing what the Father's doing. So
Mm-hmm.
when you see Jesus washing feet and willingly dying on a cross at the hands of our religion just to convince us of the death that our religion brings, when you think about that, dude, well, guess what? That's what our dad's like.
Yeah. The one thing, and it's so true, and I think about that a lot too. Jesus's insistence and constant reminding in almost every conversation that he knows the Father, he's from the Father, right? He's
Yeah.
got this insight. Dude, I've seen the Father. Me and the Father are one. I've come from the Father. I only do what he's doing. I only
Right.
say what he's saying. His insistence there that I feel like the way I was brought up was Jesus was for sure a footnote to a version or a camp of theology. And Jesus's words were always, kind of like used as proof verses, in camps of theology that mostly came from, epistles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And man, like even just those few parables we get into in Reclaim, um, the Pharisee and the tax collector, the two
Yeah.
lost sons, or the prodigal son. I was able to share. I had the opportunity to share that parable at a little driveway fire with my neighbors this past weekend. Really cool
Love that.
opportunity, and it sparked some really good conversation with some friendships that are kind of like evolving, um, which is really really cool. But man, just his insight into what the Father's like when you say, dude, this is really truly about at the core, it's finished. And then you say, Jesus, what he's really doing is helping us to give us his eyes for what the
Mm-hmm.
Father is like. When you pair, it is finished. He does the work. It's not about us doing anything at all, just receiving a reality that's been under our nose before we were even born. God made up his
Yeah.
mind about us. For God
Yes.
so loved the world, that's past tense, and out of that love comes the sending of his son. And then also just him in vivid ways, helping us have his eyes for the Father. That'll unlock the parables for you right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it'll bring a sense of it. To me, it brings a sense of freedom in that this this humanity that I have that I think is a problem that I need to overcome from Adam and Eve to us today is a lie. My humanity is not a problem to overcome. My frailty is not a problem to overcome. That's not God saying, go make dumb decisions, right? I salute you. It's him saying, yes, I made you and gave you this free will. And with that, you can make dumb decisions. He's not saying do it. He's just saying it's possible. But don't confuse that, right? Driving 120 down the road, well, now I'm out. But if you don't drive 120, well, then I'm in. Or that because you drove 120, there must be a problem with me, or there's a big problem with the freedom that I gave you.
Yeah.
No, there's something else that, you know what I mean? Here.
Right.
And so I was kind of tying all this together for me in my head is like, it's just realizing him becoming flesh was him becoming the very thing that I think I need to overcome. And saying, let me show you what dependence looks like. Let me show you what a life of faith actually looks like, because this is freedom. To free fall in the Father's embrace and to know that you're loved and you're held. Russ, you don't have an identity that you need apart from me. That's why that's why they always break down on all the various things, right? That we put it in. You don't need a sense of security beyond me. There's seeing that through this, you know what I mean? Like Jesus being the image of the invisible God and all that we read about in Reclaim that comes from that. It really brings in this like assurance, I guess you could say. It brings in a peace that surpasses understanding, as the scriptures say. And
to get to the point where Paul says, I boast in my weakness. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I only a free person could say that.
Yeah.
We're shameful of our weaknesses.
We
Paul's
are.
boasting in his.
And I think that's why we're constantly trying to overcome them. You know what I mean? Like it's in this fear of losing control. It's like, man, we have, the should camp and all the things that we need to pursue, or you get, like we were talking about earlier, or the shame camp. It's like every week it's about, being reminded that you're a POS but Jesus loves you and grace saved you. Dude, it's taken me 24 years, 25 years as a believer now. This summer will be 25 years ago I became a believer in Jesus.
This summer will be 23 for me.
And it's taken me this long, man, to realize that grace didn't save me. Jesus did.
Yep.
As a person
Yep.
is the object of my faith, the unseen, right? Risen King that I mysteriously live in and lives in me. The one who's
Yep.
brought me into the Trinitarian faith at that table for life,
Mm-hmm.
here and forever.
Mm-hmm.
He did this.
Yes.
His love is scandalous. His
Yes.
grace is reckless.
Yes.
So I'm not undermining that. I'm just saying it's if you're not careful, you can wind up worshiping grace no different than you wind up worshiping your get it together list.
Oh, I'm
They're
with
they're
you
both
100%.
means to not have to live in freedom, is what I'm getting
Yes.
at.
Yep.
And that gauntlet is kind of working through that because like depending on which camp you came from, you're kind of learning to embrace like, yeah, you're a human, you're going to be doing. We're not in any way saying don't do things
Uh-huh.
or the police for what you're doing or why you're doing it, as much as we're helping you see why you're doing what you're doing and
Mm-hmm.
finding the freedom to just be and do whatever you see the Father doing.
Mm-hmm.
Go run in it. Don't for a second think this is this is somehow making you lovable or keeping you in the tribe or proving that you're in. Grace is opposed to earning and effort because it needs neither.
Mm-hmm.
It needs neither. Never has, never will.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you're not free to go do. It actually means you're free to go do.
Yeah.
And you're going to hit bumps and you're going to, maybe be at a party and you should have stopped after 2 beers and hopefully you'll learn from that. Like, yeah, things just don't seem to go well if you keep going.
Right.
But don't think that freedom was the problem
Mm-hmm. Yes.
or
Yep.
or that God was somehow, off his game in this.
Well, it's like we're so infatuated with things that work. Does it work?
It's a good way to put it.
Um, because I think we all want to fix ourselves. We want to overcome our humanity. So whether it's, pills I can take to get my gut right or a membership that I can, jump into that's going to make my belly fat or my butt not be flabby, or whatever. We want to fix ourselves. We want to fix our trauma. We want to fix our families. We want to fix our finances. We want to fix our cars. We want to fix our wardrobe. We want to fix our hair because I don't like how I'm thinning out. We want to just fix.
Yep.
And the declaration of the gospel is you're loved and included because I made you and I love you and I'm your dad. And I needed
Yep.
to go freaking send my son, so you can have in vivid terms the contours and the shape of this love that I've had for you before you were born.
Dude, man, that First Timothy passage, like the grace that was given to us before the beginning of time,
Yeah, it's great.
but has now been revealed, as in
Revealed.
later on in the coming of the Messiah, our
Mm-hmm.
Savior Jesus Christ,
Mm-hmm.
who brings us into this union. I mean, dude, you're talking like 2 verses. I think it's like First Timothy chapter 1 was like verse 9 and 10. It's like, what?
Yep. Yep.
Like that's what he's like?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't think I'll ever get over it. I hope I never do.
Dude, go back again and read Ephesians 1 just as a non-Calvinist for just God's love for the world.
Oh man, that's so funny you brought that up. I was just did that last Thursday in a conversation with a dude who's coming out of that world and looking at these passages. Man, it's like a God who actually loves the cosmos,
Go back and
not
read
just a
Ephesians
few.
1. Yeah. As how just a general person would just share good news with their neighbor, not someone who just went through the church membership class.
Oh
Oh,
man,
it's so dope.
yeah,
It's so dope. But anyways, we're always wanting to fix ourselves. And I think we think grace is going to be, well, first of all, that's how we approach church and God in general is we want to get, fixed. And that's how most people approach, or if they come back to the church, they probably had a positive interaction with the church in their background. And so church to them is a safe place. Usually they end up getting like married or starting to have kids. And then they think like, holy crap, man, like life is hard. And,
Yep.
like, dude, we're going through these challenges. So we got to come back. And,
Gonna go
they
to
want
hell
to
if I
do it.
don't fix these babies.
They want to do it right, and they feel responsible for like doing the parenting thing right. And again, dude, I'm not saying that there's not any benefits at all. Like, just for people to not be lonely and have community and find friends and a sense of
Yeah.
belonging. Like, I do, honestly, man, like I celebrate that. Like, I think that that's great, just on a practical
Yeah.
level. And I'm not saying that God's not there either at all.
Yeah. I think he's in
Because
all
I would,
places. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
we would be blaspheming if we said that.
Yeah.
We would find ourselves like the Pharisees, like
That's what's
saying where
crazy,
God
man,
is
is
and where
even
God
the
isn't.
horrible situations, bad places, prisons, church gatherings, man, that are just, putting yokes around people's necks, dude. It's like,
Horrible places, prisons, gangs, back alleys, church services.
well, I'm being honest. Let's,
Dude, I'm like 100%.
somebody was asking me the other day, like, where do, we checked out 38 places and, nice people and friendly and cool community. But dude, every week I feel like the dude on the stage just undoes the actual good news. My point is, yes, I know. And you don't have to be there. But if you are, what the crazy thing is, God's still there.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that crazy, man, when you think about it? It's
But
just wild.
I guess my longer thought, which I probably should have got to quicker, um, is that a lot of times when you discover your freedom and the grace that is in Jesus Christ, um, it doesn't it doesn't fix. It doesn't fix. And some people think that it's broken because it doesn't fix.
Yeah.
That it's supposed to work like that. You're supposed to be fixed. And I'll tell you, like, I had sort of like a Paul-ish transformation. It was kind of pretty noticeable. And it was from the heart, because I had tried a lot of times through externals and religion to really become a different person, or through reading my Bible and praying, become a different person. And it just never worked. And I always went back to the same old toilet and rebellion. And it was twice as worse as the time before, me trying. It came from the heart. And what I realized was, as I shared my story, I was really happy about that. But for all the people who didn't experience that, or maybe like their stories were more like the disciples, where it's like 3 years close, really tight, and then at the end of it all, they're still asking the same dumbass questions, like they don't have any, like this.
Yeah.
It's just this like slow burn and slow discovery, not this like overnight kind of thing, like Paul experienced. My story was like, dude, it was like condemnation to them, because they're like, well, that hasn't happened to me. Why hasn't that happened to me?
Yeah. So it really does like just reveal that religious moralism, man. It's just that self-sufficiency that runs in our veins. Why isn't that story mine? My story must be a problem. How do I, right, make that story mine? Well, or how do I make your story inferior so that mine can remain what it is?
Hmm.
You can kind of go at it from two different angles.
Sure.
But it's, man, it's just that knee jerk reaction in us is like, I want control. I'm not feeling in control. Right? And then you start taking your next steps from there. And I guess the longer I live into this thing, the longer I'm convinced, the more I'm convinced, I guess you could say, that 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 addiction isn't going anywhere. I think it's just part of human nature. It's like AA, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Not being an alcoholic is not an option. Living sober is. And I think that's kind of us, right? the sinful nature of self-reliance runs in our veins.
Hmm.
So you could safely say, like, once a sinner, always a sinner, at least on this side of the veil. I don't mean once a dog kicker, always a dog kicker. You know what I'm saying? As much as I'm saying, like, no,
Yeah.
this self-reliant nature in you is what I'm getting at. The capital
The
S,
the
sin.
core of it all,
Yes,
core of it all, the thing that runs deep, the part of us that wants to be our own sovereign,
that's not
and
going anywhere.
the sneaky ways in which it expresses itself both religiously and irreligiously, in
Yes,
rebellion and in righteousness. It's not going away.
no. So living sober is your option. And by sober, I mean like by faith, living in the joy of the reality that in Jesus you live and dwell. You move and have your being at the table with the Trinity. That's you right now. That's me right now. And then learning to live in that freedom because we are as free as Jesus is free. That's what's in front of us. And I think what we do together is helping each other see these truths and keep reminding and encouraging each other in these truths so that we can keep living sober, man. It's you know, you can make a case, dude, for the church by the definition that we bring up in being being a recovery. It's a recovery ministry for the world. It's a bunch of addicts learning to live in the sober reality of Jesus, who are inviting other addicts to come live in the sober reality of Jesus. Yep, that's the journey. And yes, that first part of that is the hardest, man. That initial gauntlet of being free and then learning to really embrace that and live into that. Everything around you is going to say that doesn't work. The pragmatism, man, around you is going to constantly push you for what works.
Yep.
Problem
Yeah,
is,
yes, and we're infatuated with sanctification and change and transformation.
yeah, I think that's why Reclaim 4 and 5 are my favorite. Keep going.
The goal of being a Christian is to being Christ-like every day, more and more Christ-like, up and to the right, up and to the right.
Say it again.
Moving up and to the right. Oh my gosh, I will freaking punch somebody, dude.
That's sanctification.
I got a full blown fight with a leader, dude, that used to be at this, church I used to go to, and I hadn't seen the son in a while, and I knew that he had a bit of a estranged relationship with this particular son. And I went up to him and I was just like, man, it's just so cool to see your son here. Like, man, you got to be really proud, just some things going on in his life. And I think maybe in a subtle way, I was kind of like encouraging him,
Yeah.
And I was like, man, it's just good to see him. Gave him a big hug. And here's his response. He goes, yeah, kind of wish he would talk about Jesus more though. And I'm like, there it is, dude. That statement seems on the surface
Happy Father's Day.
Good, right?
Yeah.
Biblical. It fits in the category of should and ought. You have no idea, dude. You have no idea that it's that religious posture of the shoulds and the oughts that is probably at the root of what you think his problem is.
Yes. That's why I laughed and said Happy Father's Day.
Sad, bro.
The impact, man, that it has is you can't even begin to wrap your mind around it.
Yeah.
It's that vast. It's that deep. But the good news is the darkness has come, but the light overcomes it. Always has. And his name is Jesus, and he is in and among us and present. And dude, I love the truths, man, that we got at in this reclaim journey. And it's just been cool conversation, man, just to be able to take a second and reflect on some of those insights and thoughts, things that are brewing, right? As you can tell, listening to you and I share, like you can still tell like things that are ruminating, man. things you're still thinking and working through and fleshing out, and amen for it.
Yeah.
So, but before we hop off of here, a couple quick things. One, episode 100 is coming up next week.
Next
So
episode.
stay tuned, folks. Number two, there is a brand new resource dropping this week at larkside.com.
Let's go.
So it is free. It is an ebook that's coming out, a short read, something you can read. And when I say like a short book, I mean like you can read it in 20 minutes. I love it. It's a fun little read, man. Pointed, punchy, helpful, encouraging. Title of it is The Difference Between Jesus and Religion. It's not going to answer every question, but man, it's a great resource, dude, to really just to come into that conversation and start kind of seeing it for what it is and some of the differences that we just don't see because of our nature. So anyhow, if you're new to us, if that's a conversation for you or something you want to even pass on to other people, go to larkside.com. All you got to do is just subscribe down at the bottom. That's how it's going out. It's going to be free to everybody who subscribes. So
love it.
Anyhow, I'm pretty stoked about that.
Pick it up. It's got a killer design, designed by the one known as Russell Johnson. Nice little creative outlet for you. You showed it to me. I thought it was awesome.
It was therapeutic, man. I ain't gonna lie. I was handing it off to somebody to do it, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna do this one because
Good.
I'm
proud of you.
I could use a couple of days of work where my brain could take a break.
Yeah,
and it was encouraging, man. So thanks for the shout out on that. It's a fun little read, though, man. And like you said, it looks cool.
Enjoy. Till next time.
Yeah, man. Peace.
Cheers.